I think Papa is here.
Hello everyone, we are now live in Facebook. We can now start.
Okay, first, I would like to thank you for all of you who be on time in our first webinars that organized by People Coalition on Food Sovereignties. Yes, first I would like to introduce myself. I am Chandra from Coalition of Cambodian Farmer Community from Cambodia. And today is our first webinars on Asia food producer in Peril. So now we have 20 participants from different countries around Asia's continent and as well other continent. Yeah. So to start our program, I would like to yes, I would like to let all of you know that we will have some presentation and sharing from our friend and comrade who are from PCFIS, Global Secretary of PCFIS. We also has the representative from Asian Peasant Coalition. We also have representation from representative from Room for Equity. We have Fernando from Pamalaka. We also have Oran Su from CHRE. We also have Fatima from SREDs. We also have Katu from Sri Lanka, and we also have Wali from PCFS and APC, and we also have Razan from Palestine. Yeah, all of the presenter I already introduced. So to be start our sharing and presentation from them, I would like to invite Saro. Yeah, I would like to invite Saro to give the open remark for our webinar. Yes, please, Saro.
Thank you, Chandra, and thank you everyone for this invitation to speak the introduction for this webinar. I am Sarojini Rangam from Pesticide Action Network Asia Pacific, member of Steering Committee of Asia for PCFS. And I just wanted to also talk about a little bit on, it's interesting that we are having this webinar during the ILPS, or the International League of People's Struggles Week of Anti-Imperialist Struggle, which is starting from May 25 to 31, 2020. And what we are finding is that amid the COVID-19 pandemic, what we are seeing is the intensifying of the impact of decades of imperialism and neoliberal agendas, both of privatization, reduced spending on people services, and trade deals that favor big businesses. In some countries, the military is being used to safeguard the needs of big business and continuing unfair conditions of work for workers. This pandemic is basically intensifying the existing social injustices and inequalities and the loss of lives and livelihoods, and just as the right to development. Can we mute? If you're not speaking, just mute your mic, please, so that there's no big noise. It's a bit, yeah, thank you. So this pandemic is expected to put 1.6 billion workers in the informal sector, nearly half the global workforce. They stand in immediate danger of losing their livelihoods. Worse, in the US, they wanted to reduce the pay of farm workers, who are the least, the people who don't get very good wages. And they wanted to reduce the pay so that it would not be a burden for the big farmers and the agribusiness, so that they won't face economic loss. And India at this time, maybe Fatima and others will be sharing what they're planning to remove laws that safeguard workers' benefits and safety. Whatever is there, they're now trying to remove that so that there wouldn't be an economic burden to the landlords, the big business owners. And the reality is that without jobs, workers are unable to feed themselves and their families. There's also a worrying aspect, as the World Food Program warns, of famines and increased hunger and malnutrition. 1 billion people are either going to bed hungry every night or facing crisis levels of hunger or worse. And with the COVID-19 pandemic, an additional 130 million people will be pushed to the brink of starvation by the end of 2020. So it's a big challenge, it's a big problem that we are facing. What we're also facing is that with the border closures, quarantine, and market supply chain and trade disruptions, this is actually restricting people's access to sufficient, diverse, and nutritious sources of food, especially in countries hit hard by the virus, or they're already facing high levels of food insecurity. And this is because all our countries are agricultural countries. And with the neoliberal agenda and policies, we are actually facing food insecurity in all our countries because we're dependent on the market. And that's one of the impact, which is now being intensified because of the COVID-19. And with all these closures, we are finding also that the demand for food will decrease over the next few months, as people will be unable to buy food to feed themselves and their families. And we are finding that also sectors in agriculture, fisheries, and aquaculture that was depending on tourism and restaurants and school meals in some countries will be facing again difficulties to sell their produce. There's also shortages of fertilizers and other inputs that will affect agricultural production. So what will happen is that we're finding that there's also challenges in terms of logistic bottlenecks. So with all the lockdown, food from the rural areas is unable to come to the cities or to other countries, other states, other cities within the country itself. And so we are finding it difficult to have access to food, especially nutritious food. So especially if it is like in the beginning days of the lockdown, the farmers in Cameron Highlands in Malaysia, they had to throw their produce out because they couldn't transport it to other areas, to their cities. And then worse, at this time, what we are also facing is violations of our rights. There's more policing, more security imposition, jail time, and of course, we can't protest. There's no avenue, there's no possibility of show dissent. So everything, any criticism is seen as you are working against the economy of the country. You are going against the situation in terms of the lockdown, and the pandemic, COVID-19. So it's been a very difficult period of time. And worse is that in this scenario, the most affected, of course, they've been affected even before the COVID-19, but it's being intensified, and poor people are, finding it more and more difficult to survive without proper livelihoods, without proper jobs, and most of the vulnerable segments of the population are the small-scale farmers, the migrants, the informal workers, the pastoralists, the fisherfolk, and the people who have been displaced, and those hit by conflict. The intensification of violations of human rights, we can see that it's happening. It's and it's becoming the norm. It's accepted by people who are being who are doing this in the name of lockdown and COVID-19 pandemic, and people are accepting that, and I think that's one of the major problems that we are facing, and this vulnerable groups are also hindered from working their land, caring for their livestock, or even fishing. I think fishing will be a real challenge for a lot of fisherfolk who can't go to the sea. How do you do social distancing in a boat, a small boat?
Muted.
So it's going to be a real challenge. And they also have challenges assessing markets to sell their products or buy essential inputs, or even struggle due to higher food prices or lower prices because they have both in terms of lost their markets, but also limited their purchasing power. And so what is needed right now is a focus on the needs of the most vulnerable, scale up of social protection programs, including cash transfers. The focus should be also on food security, national food security, keeping domestic food supply alive and functioning well, and ensuring food to all, especially to those who are facing difficulties and facing starvation. And finally, of course, agroecology, because then you don't need to depend on inputs from outside, fertilizers, through composting, you can do mulching, many ways. Farmers, seed saving and breeding should be encouraged, because we don't need to go back to the market to buy seeds. And of course, animal feed to produce own animal feed, etc., to ensure that we are not dependent on outside support. So this is just the introduction, and I just want to say that this webinar aims to share how the COVID-19 crisis impacts rural sectors in different countries, expose the role of neoliberal policies in the current fragile, unjust, and unsustainable food systems in the region. It also aims to discuss substantial policy reforms that rural peoples demand from their governments and intergovernmental bodies to ensure just, equitable, and sustainable food systems, and to highlight rural community actions in charting a new normal towards the right to food and food sovereignty. So thank you very much for allowing me to present the introduction. Thank you, Chandra. Thank you, everyone.
sharing us the situation and the brief situation that happened in the globe during the pandemic of the COVID-19, and sharing us their situation and their need. Yes, based on Sarah's sharings, I would like to emphasize the need of farmer and vulnerables now are social protection, national food security, and agroecology that need to be strengthened and support to them. Yeah. Okay. Before yes, Sarah also sharing and present about the objective of our webinars. So before I call our presenter in the next topic, I would like to emphasize on some rule before we start our sharing. Yeah. Before the starting, everyone please mute your microphone, and when presenters want to show her or his face, please turn on your camera just during your sharing. Just let everyone see your face, and other you don't need to open your camera. Yes, and the presenters will have 15 minutes for each to share your topic, your presentation. Yes, if everyone here or our audience through Facebook or YouTube have question, you can approach us by dropping your question. Yeah, here or through our video. Yeah, I would like to call JC. Yes, the global secretaries of PCFS to share about the food security in JC.
Hello, everyone. Thank you. Again, I'm JC Mercado. I'm part of the Global Secretariat, also a staff of the PCFS Asia. So I will be tackling just a little bit about the anatomy of the food security crisis that is currently being faced by Asian peoples today. So banking from what Saro has comprehensively discussed, the world today is facing a triple nexus of crisis. Of course, a health crisis due to the pandemic, an economic crisis as jobs and markets collapse, and a looming global food crisis, pushing more people than ever, at least in recent history, to hunger and starvation. So as of yesterday, Saros already pointed out that even the UN has warned that this coronavirus will cause a pandemic. This pandemic will cause an unimaginable devastation and suffering around the world, with historic levels of hunger and famine, with up to 1.6 billion people more unable to earn a living unless action is taken. So, just to show you a little bit, hunger across the world is not new, of course. I don't. There. Is that? Okay. So hunger across the world is not new. Around 821 million people experience hunger across the world. This is from official data of FAO. And 165 million more experience extreme hunger, meaning those people who sleep at night hungry or even skip meals more than once a day. And in another estimate, the more than 2 billion people or 1 in 4, don't have regular access to nutritious, safe, and healthy food. So, meaning 1 in 4 people, even before the pandemic, are experiencing distress and food insecurity. And that is more pronounced as in the rural areas, as 80% of the extreme poor are resided in the rural areas, and more than 70% of them are part of agricultural production. So in Asia, but the slides don't want to cooperate. There. So in Asia, 6 out of every 10 of those chronically hungry are in Asia, about 513.9 million. And 648 million face moderate food insecurity, meaning they skip a meal at least once a day. And at least half of those 1 billion people across the world, or 973 million, who don't have access to healthy food, nutritious, and enough calories to get them through the day efficiently and productively, are also in Asia. A huge part of that is in Southern Asia. In fact, more than 80%. Afghanistan, Pakistan, India, and Bangladesh. But I'm sorry, can you see my presentation?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, now we can.
Yes, we can.
Okay.
We can see.
Yes.
Yes, we can see.
So with UN warning of famines and FAO stating that, even FAO saying that in any scenario, hunger will rise. In fact, hunger is rising 3 years in a row now. And FAO and other international organizations have pointed out that these famines that happen across the world are not caused by natural calamities or disasters, but mainly man-made. So what we're seeing now is an extension and an exacerbation of that. So if I may, we are now going to dive in a little bit about the anatomy of the current food crisis. Because, of course, if you have seen the news, all the narratives across the food crisis about the food crisis is all about supply chain disruptions. The WTO, the G20 have both given pronounced statements on tackling supply chain disruptions. So, but the fact is, trade bans today consist of only 1.18% of food exports. So 11 countries have decided to ban exports of their goods across 16 products, but that only represents 1.18%. Of course, net food importing countries will be most hit, especially in Asia. That's Malaysia, Indonesia, and the Philippines, by this trade bans. But it doesn't really represent what's happening with the increased hunger and increased volatility of prices. Another problem we're seeing in the level of food availability that is talked about also is production choke points. So we are seeing that some lockdowns results in loss of harvest because it coincided with the harvest season. We've seen this in tea plantations in India and Sri Lanka already, resulting to the loss of incomes, etc. And also, we are seeing market closures. Some big markets have already closed, or some have put in more stringent policies of social distancing, which have diminished the demand. And also, we are seeing some pest and climate-related problems, especially in India and Pakistan, which are now dealing with locusts, which affect their production. While proponents of the neoliberal globalization like WTO and G20, as I've said earlier, are quick to blame the supply chain disruptions, research from IFPRI have made it clear that this is not the problem. Food availability is not the problem. In fact, we have record levels of production in cereals, rice, wheat, soy, maize, uh, and even vegetables. So availability is not the problem. Um, Availability is a huge problem, though, in one of the things that they have not touched on, which is countries experiencing sanctions. Syria, the Democratic Republic Peoples of Korea, the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, sorry, which are now suffering from sanctions initiated and backed by US and G20 allies, have seen their policy options severely limited in facing a pandemic like coronavirus. That's not only in food, but also we're seeing in Iran where they have shortages in hospital supplies. So food availability, while a problem, is not really a huge part of the picture. Even if WTO, G20, TPP, and other intergovernmental platforms have talked about it. The bigger problem, as FAO and other organizations have pointed out, is food access. The first problem is the rising prices in some areas, despite record levels of production. Again, that's one of the things we have seen is rice has hit 7-year high price in Thailand and of course around the world. That's because China and Saudi Arabia, these huge importing countries, rich countries, have started buying up futures that drove up the prices. Overall, FAO notes that across Asia, there's at least a 5% increase in food prices in the countries. Most extreme cases, although it's highly uneven, in the most extreme cases, like Myanmar, it has reached at least 25%. Of course, there are also, due to the lockdowns, there are also punctures of high prices and in rice in some countries like Indonesia and the Philippines, which has lasted for 3 to 7 days. In Metro Manila, reaching up to 65% in one day. But the bigger problem is the loss of income, especially for informal workers. In India alone, 60 to 90% of their workforce is in the informal economy. Saros already said this, that that the informal workers, which are really unprotected and don't have any social safety nets with them, don't have access to healthcare, are now being called essential workers, despite the fact that they don't even have this essential protections. So in India, we will see India like a microcosm of this, despite 10% of the global arable lands and 20% of its agricultural budget given towards stabilizing domestic price. It's currently facing a hunger pandemic, which experts call it. So it's the world's largest producer of milk, millets, rice, second to rice, wheat, sugarcane, etc. But it accounted for a 51% increase among the severely food insecure in the region. So a bigger problem will be those who are rural informal workers. Of course, as we have said earlier, the new estimate is 1.6 billion people will lose their jobs, and informal economy, according to ILO, will lose 60%. Their wages will collapse by 60%. So this severe and unprecedented collapse in economies will not affect everyone in the same way. As we are seeing, the informal sector, especially the rural, landless, the marginalized sector in the rural areas, will be more affected. In South Asia alone, it's estimated that we will see 14% in extreme poverty because of this. Also, some of the programs like school meals have stopped. I think the presentation is slow. Keep up. Okay. And lastly, for food access, we are seeing farmers selling their produce in lower prices because fruits, cotton, tea, and other specialized crops have seen a really reduced farm gate prices. In Bangladesh, for example, in a survey by ActionAid, they saw 79% of those who have participated in the survey in Bangladesh have sold their crops at really lower rates than the market. So this is how it's being presented to us: the food availability, food access, etc. And this accounts for a huge part of the hunger crisis that we are facing today. But a bigger portion of it, especially in the 2008 food crisis, that now it's becoming a reflection of that crisis again. We are seeing the same trends happening. So, for example, down the roots of this crisis in food availability and food access is the problem of neoliberal globalization, which has disheveled food sovereignty and any chances of national development of food industries. So, first, agricultural dumping is a very huge plays a very huge role in this crisis because, for example, monopolies control the agri-trade production. 4 companies alone, that's ADM, Bunge, Cargill, Louis Dreyfus, control 75 to 90% of global grain trade. Of course, we have new players coming in like China's COFCO and Malaysia's Wilmar Sinarmas coming into the global grain trade. But as we have seen in the past 3 years, dumping has returned. U.S. wheat, for example, has been exported at 32% less than the cost of production, 10% less for soybeans, corn 12% less, and rice at 2% less. What's happening is they're flooding out.
You can finish your presentation in 2 minutes left.
Okay. So what's happening is they're flooding us with cheap subsidized products while our farmers abandon their production because of the lower farm gate prices. Also, export dependence, of course, commodity dependence affects 85% of least developed countries and 81% of landlocked countries. So in any case, because we are our economies, our farmers are dependent on exports, especially agriculture in Afghanistan, Myanmar, Micronesia, Maldives, Vanuatu, Fiji, and mining, which both result in huge land grabbing. Our economy, our farmers lose in income. Also, historical low investment in agriculture. One of the highest investment in developing countries in Asia is India, but 90% of their in a study, 90% of their subsidies go to rich farmers. Also, land grabs from foreign and domestic corporations, which we are seeing another renewed interest in grabbing lands or from bigger and richer countries to secure their domestic food needs. Also, the historical non-protection of rural food producers, and also neoliberal policies, all in all, that denationalize food production, distribution, and consumption. So lastly, we have the looming challenges, which is panic buying of rich nations. We are seeing this. China, Saudi Arabia, Malaysia have started doing it, and Singapore. The CPTPP has created open lines with Myanmar and other member countries so that they ensure their own food security while these countries face hunger. This can also mean in the future, as we have seen the 2008 crisis, of another round of land grabs. Also, seed and agri-trade monopolies have started to, start buying up stakes, and also seed banks have been setting up renegotiated. For example, in the Philippines, Bayer have started distributing hybrid seeds to farmers, which we have seen as the same move in Green Revolution to hook farmers into this fertilizer and into this fertilizer hungry kinds of seeds, while of course eroding our biodiversity. And lastly, a huge challenge is our false solutions that they are presenting us. So we have seen WTO and other organizations are looking for silver bullets of digitalization, again, of blockchain, etc., over systemic solutions like food sovereignty and agroecology to tackle this and strengthen the resilience of domestic food production, especially in the global south. Lastly, a huge problem, as we are seeing now, like in 2008, where WTO hijacked all the narratives, all the bodies that is trying to find a common solution to food security and strengthening domestic food production. WTO did that. And now we're seeing it again with WEF, hijacking the World Food System Summit in 2021, and the World Economic Forum leading many consultations, leading many processes that would eventually redesign and create a new normal for food and food security across the world. So we are seeing now that the redefining of agriculture will be a clear struggle between the neoliberal globalization peddlers in imperialist countries and their cohorts against the wave of struggle for just, equitable, and sustainable food systems. So we can only do that if we champion the voice and the aspirations and demands of the most marginalized rural food producers, especially here in Asia. So that's, thank you.
Okay, thank you, JC, for your presentation and sharing us food security in Asia. Yes, there are many evidence that JC shared us regarding the current food crisis. I just this about the four main point that JC raised related to the current crisis in food. Those are the food availabilities. Food access is also some problem for informal workers and as well farmers. Food sovereignty, yes, it's still remaining problem, and it's getting worse. And only JC also shares about learning challenge is really during this pandemic. Thank you so much, JC. Yeah. For any question, you can notify and can visit after our speaker present. Yes, at the last of our webinars. Yes, next speakers, I would like to call Kathy's who are from Asian Peasant Coalition, is to share about land and rights in Asia. Kathy, you have 15 minutes.
Hello. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Good afternoon, comrades. Good afternoon, everyone. We are here at the webinar forum with the team Asian Food Producers in Peril. Actually, I have a PowerPoint. other. So what I am sharing is the result of the webinar forum of the Asian Peasant Coalition last May 21. We have 6 speakers from the Asian Peasant Coalition members like India, Cambodia, Pakistan, Indonesia, and the Philippines. No, and that forum that we were able to share the different situation of the peasant in the different countries in the midst of this pandemic, COVID-19 pandemic. And the theme of the forum really depicts the reality in the countrysides. No, it's the food producers are really in peril, and according to some experts, the crisis we are facing is the same with the crisis during the Second World War. So imagine the famine we will be experiencing this next a few years, this coming years. No. So for us, under APC, members of the APC, the sharing last May 21 are the same. No, the 5 countries that shared have the same situation. Like landlessness remains the fundamental problem of the peasantry. No. So, handful of big landlords, agro corporations, monopolize the land. No, despite we are in the midst of this pandemic, we are in a lockdown for how many months? In the Philippines, we have the longest lockdown, but land grabbing continues. No, so like what Saro have said while ago. Inter-imperialist competition to control the world's market and resources is feeding greater conditions for land grabbing and displacement. You know, thousands of farmers in the whole Asia are being their land are being land grabbed by these imperialist countries, especially US. And that resulted to the continuing destruction of our lands and ecosystem, which makes our resources of food and medicine in peril. So we view that these productive resources should be in the hands of the farmers, of the producers, so they can dictate what could be what to produce. No? Next slide, please. So in the midst of this COVID-19 pandemic, have really worsened the conditions of our farmers. You know, here in the Philippines, and not just in the Philippines, even in the other Asian countries, blocking and hampering of due to this lockdown, the blocking and hampering of farmers, farm workers, and fisher folks from going to their farms and waters have made their life really miserable. No, they don't have food. They have experienced hunger, and peasant women also experience continuous anxiety where to get how to provide food for the children. No, and not just blocking the areas where our farmers go for a living, it also hampers the travel of food and other agricultural products. No? So most of the products of our farmers got rotten because it is not being sent to the markets. No, so the only market they have is within their community. No, so it is both at a very, very low price because their community. People in the community also don't have don't have money, since they don't they don't have work. They cannot go to work, no? So and despite the prices of farm produce both at a very, very low prices, the basic price of food and other commodities has been rising, or there's no price control to help those people who don't have food, don't have money to buy. No, the prices of basic commodities have gone up. So it's what do you call this? It's the opposite side. It's the opposite side wherein produce of farmers both at very, very low price, while basic commodities are both at a very, very high prices. No? Next slide, please. So the COVID-19 pandemic worsened the impoverished condition of farmers. No? Payment of land rent, the high cost of production, the usury continues despite we are being in a lockdown for how many months. No production of farmers' produce are both at a very, very low price, and this make the farmers got a very, very what do you call this? The utang. They borrow money from the usurers with a very, very high rates, which cost them really poor. No. Next slides, please. Okay, the lack of comprehensive pandemic response by the government was exposed. No, so here our peasants is calling for 10,000 support for their everyday life while on lockdown, and at the same time we are calling for a 15,000. We are demanding the government to give 15,000 for our in support for our production activities. No, but then that's not it is being that is not being given yet by the government. We are still campaigning that amount to be given to our farmers, so they will be able to help on this coming production season. No, so in relation to that, since the produce of the farmers are not being sold at the market, are being sold at a very, very low price. Here in the Philippines, we have this bagsakan or online market where we bring the produce of the farmers in the cities and contact buyers, so their produce would not be this masira, will not be rotten. No, farmers organization taking initiatives including relief operations, assistance in marketing local produce, and presenting their demands to the government. So while going to the market to buy the produce of the farmers, we bring also placards to show the demands of the farmers, and also during relief missions, we used to hold placards demanding the government to give immediate support to our farmers. Next slide, please. So this pandemic, the pandemic issue have been militarized. No, the government is using this pandemic issue to militarize the communities, especially farmers who are demanding the support of the government, denouncing the massive land grabbing in their cities, displacement, and we are met by the response is really results to human rights abuses. So it is here the human rights abuses in Asia, with this numbers, wherein here in the Philippines, there were 229 people who are being in the different countries in the whole Asia. We could see how this militarization is being used by the government to silence the people, especially the struggling, the farmers. Next slide, please. Okay. So with this problem, the struggle for land continues. As long as there is no genuine land reform, there is really an urgent task to break up the land monopoly of big landlords, and this should be distributed for free to the peasants, no, to the landless peasants, which is the main requisite to implement a comprehensive and long-term rural development and national industrialization. Without the implementation, without genuine land reform program, without free distribution of land, rural development and national industrialization cannot be achieved. No? With land reform, of course, with genuine land reform, we could apply, productive areas would be able to apply and develop peasant-led agroecology-based and sustainable farming system, no? Which would answer our need for food self-sufficiency. No? The millions of hectares grabbed by land plantations, large plantations, which have destroyed our ecosystems, no? Can be regained and strengthened if land and natural resources will be in the control of our farmers, and will be developed through a program on sustainable agriculture. No? The full emancipation of the landless peasants as the most exploited and oppressed productive forces in the countryside serves as a democratic content of upholding the principles of democracy and social justice and sovereignty. No? Without implementing genuine land reform and rural development, which is fundamental to social change, economic and political reforms cannot be achieved and realized. So from here, it is really a challenge for us peasants, for all the oppressed sector in the world to continue the struggle for genuine land reform, because without implementing genuine agrarian reform and rural development, this is the fundamental social and economic political reforms cannot be achieved and realized. So it is the challenge for us oppressed sector, especially peasants, to continue. The struggle for land reform is a must. No? It is a must. It is a must for all Asian countries, especially the oppressed sector. We have to continue to conscientize, organize, not only farmers. We should also conscientize our families, especially children, for them to continue our struggle for a just and lasting world. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Kathy, that be on time for your presentation. Yes, as we have many other speakers, so I don't want to recap what Kathy is present. Yes. Yes, thank you so much, Kathy, for your share us the land and rice in Asia that you collect from the 5 countries in Asia. Yeah, The next speaker I would call rural women and livestock production that will be shared by Asra, who are from Root for Equities. So Asra, please share your presentation.
Thank you very much, Shan. This is Azra Saeed, and as already mentioned, I'm from Roots for Equity, based here in Karachi, Pakistan. I will be talking about sector about the livestock in Pakistan and its impacts. Basically, the impacts of neoliberalism and this imperialist agenda, which the Americans and other countries such as China, Australia have towards a livestock sector in Pakistan. I will start with that Pakistan is very rich in livestock. It has more than 100 million heads in the country. 60 million are in the dairy sector. We have some of the world's best breeds, especially with respect to buffaloes. We have the Neel Ravi buffalo. It is considered the best dairy buffalo in the world. Who looks after these very big number of livestock? It is basically small farmers, subsistence farmers. 93% in my country are small farmers, and 89% of them are livestock farmers, and they are landless. So you can see that, number one, we are very rich in livestock, but livestock is basically cared by subsistence level farmers, and a very vast majority of them are landless farmers. Now, even among the landless farmers, who does the work? It is the women. I read a report which said that 59% time in the rural areas in Pakistan is spent on looking after livestock and livestock activity. Come from rural areas, as our activism is based with the landless, we see day in, day out how much work that livestock is and how much women are involved. For women, livestock is like a bank balance. Most of our rural economy does not actually have bank accounts, and they will, for any emergencies, for a death in the family, for marriages, for childbirth, they like to have livestock because it's easy to sell and have immediate cash flow in the household. What are the commercial interests in livestock? If you think about it, milk is a very big sector. Second is meat. And the third, which we often don't talk about or think about, is leather. The skin from the animals is a huge leather industry, especially in Pakistan. It is also an export sector. This is the output from livestock. Also, livestock has an input industry, and I will I'm using this to indicate how critical is livestock to the corporate sector. For the subsistence level farmer, livestock is basically for food consumption. It is an income generation activity. It is a security. It is much more food intake, because in Pakistan, milk is a very, very critical food base of our rural families. Not only the milk, but also the what we call desi ghee, which is butter oil made from the milk turned into butter, and from the butter, the ghee, the oil, and then also lassi, which is consumed on a daily basis in rural household. In the morning, people will just make a chapati, a paratha, and then have it with milk or with lassi. That is how we have survived. And I really think that when the people are talking about immunity levels in our countries, I think our immunity levels are so much better, mainly because of the fresh food that still we are doing in comparison to what is taken in the urban centers. Even in Pakistan, the urban centers food intake is basically trash, and we all know that. But the rural areas are saved because of the livestock. Now, given that, what is happening, especially in the context of the World Trade Organization and the neoliberal attack on our food and agriculture sectors, we see that in Pakistan, we have many vested interests now in the livestock sector. We have, of course, the omnipresent USAID. It is present in the milk sector. It is present in the meat sector. It is talking about providing economy, what are they called? Technology, information technology to track the origins of milk and meat. And they have many different heads operating in the country. USAID is one, then they have the Agribusiness Project, then they have the US-Pakistan Partnership for Agricultural Market Development, and so on. And so I cannot even name all of them. I don't have time. What is just critical to know that the US is very active in the livestock sector in Pakistan, including for semen imports into the country, because they say that, you know, your productivity is so low, you only emphasize quantity and you don't look at quality. I think JC's presentation was very clear on malnutrition in Asia, but more so in South Asia, and particularly in Pakistan. So for us, quantity is very critical. And our breeds have some of the best breeds in the world. So they dare not talk about quality to us. Our quality is 1,000 times better than the trash that they eat in Europe and North America. I mean, people who go from South Asia generally will not eat meat in those countries because it is so terrible. It is so rich and high in fat that you just cannot eat their meat. So from the US, I then also go to China. China has, when it came in with CPEC, with the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, agriculture was not being talked about, and suddenly in 2 years, it has been opened up for agriculture as well. And recently in October 2019, they opened the Pak-China Agriculture Cooperation Exchange Center, and China vows to implement special economic zones under CPEC and also have a fast-track mechanisms under that, whatever it means. China pledges to open its markets for Pakistani agriculture products like rice and fish, and then facilitate Pakistan in the marketing of its halal food products, and also, of course, modern agriculture technologies. All of this is related to livestock. It is also, China is also going to set up 13 mega agriculture sector projects under CPEC. So they talk about it, about livestock. Every time they talk about agriculture, they will specifically talk about livestock. Then also Asian Development Bank, AusAid, New Zealand, and some countries of Europe, especially Netherlands. They're all present in our markets. I think it is time for us in PCFS, in our organizations, to really our energies on the WTO. I think in some ways we have not looked at WTO very critically in the past few years, and we have been very focused on neoliberalism, which is absolutely correct. But we need to see what is happening at the WTO. I believe that the amount of work that the Americans and the Chinese are putting into the livestock sector is very much related to the WTO and the neoliberal agenda for exporting milk and meat out of the country from Pakistan. They need to have what they call, under the sanitary and phytosanitary agreements of the WTO, they have standards of what kind of meat and milk or any food product is going to be taken out of a country. And it is critical for them to have origins and traceability of the product. Where did it start from? Where did it go in the value chain, in the supply chain? And they need to come back to the original producer. This is not, and this has nothing to do about food quality. This is only linked to making sure that the export markets are totally in the hands of the corporations, whether they are dairy corporations, whether they are meat corporations, or they are processed food corporations. Cargill in the past year has jumped into the country and is talking left and right about how they will help the Pakistani government to increase its capacity for traceability. So I believe that it is very critical. It is critical that we start looking at the livestock market with a very minute detail on what are they and what are they trying to get out of our countries. Again, it goes on and on and on. And they are so product oriented that they will go from one product to the other. And because they have a product orientation, they move in very quickly. And we, because who we are and thankfully for whom we are, we believe in collective integrated production processes. We believe in enriching our farmers. We don't look at products as a commodity. To us, it is part of the whole. And hence, they are able to move in far more quickly than how we are oriented in our production and in our politics as well. This was the output markets in livestock. The input markets is on GM seeds for maize specifically, because maize, they are researching that maize seeds produce fodder, which is very good for increasing the manure from the animal. So the manure production increases if you give fodder from maize seeds. They are just, I sometimes think they are mad. This is done only to have biodiesel as the end product. So they want us now to wipe away cotton, which they have very successfully done in Pakistan. Cotton production is really just now the pits in Pakistan. From cotton, we are now steadily moving, and we have already moved into sugarcane and maize. And the whole context is energy production. Secondly, they have the seed in sector, they have the fodder sector, because they are pushing seeds for fodder and other fodder apart from maize. The third is the semen, which I had mentioned before. So you can see that they are into the input markets, into the input sectors with respect to livestock, and they are also in the output sectors of livestock. And we, I think, have not been as rigorous either in research or in our politics to bring this sector out. And I emphasize that a majority of the dairy farmers are women. We know it, and we believe that these women are now being trained by the DFID, by the British aid agencies, by European aid agencies, the EU in particular, is coming in and talking about women liberation. The mantra is always how badly treated our women are and how difficult is patriarchy. And of course, they are the ones who are going to save us and liberate us like they did in Afghanistan. So the whole context of the livestock sector has now become focused on women, and really women empowerment is the key word that they are using in the sector. I would like to say that in the early days of COVID-19 in March, early March, what happened was, because of the lockdown, there was complete lockdown. The small hotels and the restaurants and the milk sellers, also the yogurt sellers, the lassi sellers, everything closed down. And 95% of our milk market is still in the informal sector, thankfully. It is still with the small farmers and the small producers and the small sellers. And that is why the corporations are so jealous. And they say we have only 5% of the entire market, thankfully. And we should keep it that way. But we are going to lose it very quickly. There was only Nestle in Pakistan previously. And then last year, there was another group called Campina Friesland from Holland. It is a farmers cooperative, I believe. An official in the Dutch industry, in the Dutch government, just was so overwhelmingly positive about their dairy producers. They said they will be very good for your dairy small producers. They have the heart to work with peasants. I don't believe that totally, 100%. And so now Friesland Campina is also in Pakistan. They have bought majority shares in a local corporation called Engro. So now we have Nestle, we have this Friesland Campina or Campina Friesland. And the third one is Cargill, which is also talking to, they go directly to the Prime Minister. That is the height of imperialism in this country, that they can go directly to the Prime Minister to talk about the dairy sector in Pakistan. Can you imagine? And they have been assured of all help that they can give, the government can give to these corporations. So the crux is that the result of all this is that in the past 3-4 years, they have set up an authority called the Pure Food Law Authority in every province of the country. The Pure Food Authorities is going and seizing milk containers of large producers and destroying it, saying it is contaminated. It does not meet the pure food law as stipulated by the World Trade Organization. And so we are very quickly going to lose the entire food sector to the corporations. And in the early days of the COVID-19, when all the restaurants and the small shops were closed, these women were producing milk. These animals had nowhere to sell. And the result was that these Nestle and Engro and many of the others had these chillers. These are like small tankers, we call them, like water tankers. They will go and park these water tankers around winter hubs where they know that the villages have huge amount of animals there. And they will park it there and people will come and sell it to the chillers. Now the small milk sellers could not buy milk because everything was closed. So what did Nestle and the others do? That they lowered the price buying rate of the milk from 60 to 40 rupees a kilo. It jumped down to 28 to 30 rupees. And they were able to store milk from the small producers. And that is how they were able to actually make a lot of profit at a time when people really needed that kind of cash to help them through these very difficult days. It has become better now with the markets opening up and stuff, and it is much better. But it was such a shock to us to understand how easy it is for them to grab our markets and our produce, because they have the capacity to keep everything in these chillers. They have these huge silos, they have these huge chiller tanks, and so they can store stuff for 3 months, whereas we can't even store it for a day. We know that very well. And of course, it is healthier. Drink it can be done with it. No need to store it. But that's not how the market thinks. So I will end here and just talk about, finish with this, that Pakistan and countries like us who have huge livestock and they have huge markets with respect to milk, dairy. Milk is not only milk. Milk is cheese, milk is yogurt, milk is lassi, milk is butter oil, and all of these products are critical for us. I think JC already mentioned nutrition levels, and I will not repeat it because this is something which we know it very well, but almost 40 to 50% of women in my country are anemic. Most of them have, in the childbearing ages, are very anemic. Young girls are very anemic, and they really need this food to come to them directly. I will finish with that, but just say that I think we need to plan how to raise this issue at a global level and bring it to the notice of our own governments, of course, which they will not necessarily know very well, but we need to politicize and sensitize our farmers to create political roadblocks to them accessing our milk sector, our dairy sector, our leather sector, our meat sector. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Asra, for your sharings about the global policy, yes, the effective of the global policy, yes, the enrollees, yes, during the COVID-19 that affects the women and livestock production in Pakistan as well. It affects to the globe as well. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you again. Yes. According to our time, I would like to call on Fernando. Yes. Fernando is from Hamalakaya. Yes, it is a Philippines language. Yes. Will be present about fisher folk and Philippine fisheries. Yes, please, from Fernando's. Yes, present your slides. Hello, Fernando. If Fernando is not here, if Fernando is not here, I will move to next speaker. No? Okay. Next speakers, yes, our next speaker is not being here. So I would ask Stephen, yeah, to read the presentation of, yes, to read the presentation from Yuran Su. Yeah, she is not here. Yeah, the presentation of Uransu is about pastoralists in Mongolia. Yeah, so Stephen, please.
Hello, everyone. I will be reading the message of our friends from Mongolia. Mongolia is a landlocked country between China and Russia. It neighbors with China on the south, southeast, and southwest, and with Russia on the north, northeast, and northwest. The both countries affected with COVID-19 outbreak. Initial outbreak was in China, but Russia has pandemic currently as well. So Mongolia has been assessed 8 times as high-risk country since January. The State Emergency Commission started preventive and preparation measures since January. It established the heightened state of readiness situation under which since January 26 closed borders, and it continues now and recently was extended till the 30th of June. It includes the suspension of international passenger flights, under which flights to China has suspended since January 30, to Korea, Russia, and European destinations since middle of March. It also restricted passengers' movements on vehicles, trains crossing borders. It closed all schools, universities, and kindergartens since January 27 till September 1, and schooling moved to online and TV modes. Limited hours for restraints, closed bars, nightclubs, all entertainments, trainings, and restricted public events, etc. It was recommended not to gather more than 5 people, recommended where possible work from home. Everyone is obliged to wear face masks in public spaces. This regime has been little weakened in May and permitted trainings for people until 10 with distance of 1.5 meters from each other. Due to these strict measures, there is no recorded case transmitted in the country. As of 28th of May, total number of confirmed coronavirus cases is 161. They are all imported cases. 33 patients have recovered and no deaths. All of the cases are imported. Most of them are from Russia. The number will be increasing as the repatriation will continue. After suspension of all international flights and cross-border movements of people, the SEC started repatriation of Mongolians from abroad through charter flights from Korea, Japan, Germany, India, Turkey, and Russia, and also by land from Russia. So far, almost 9,000 people arrived. However, there are more people abroad in more than 40 countries and make requests to return home. People returning from abroad are all quarantined in specially designated hotels, and hospitals for 14 days, which was later increased to 21 days, tested several times on corona, those who are virus positive treated, and after recovery continues isolation for 2 weeks and special with testing as well, and then allowed to join their families with recommendation of 2 weeks of isolation at home. The government measures to cope with the COVID-19 economic and social impacts. Mongolian economy depends on exports of minerals. Coal export in 2020 worth 412 million US dollars decreased 2.6 times from the same period last year. 2.1% decrease in the transportation and communication sectors, 1.3% decrease in wholesale and retail. Small business shops, service providers have been severely affected because of closure. People's income, and livelihood deteriorated. According to the unofficial statistics, 48,000 people became jobless. The government is implementing some stimulus package to mitigate the economic and social impact of the pandemic. Economic stimulus package includes exempting income tax, social insurance fee, and providing 200,000 MNT of monthly allowance to every employee of entities which kept job places for 6 months period from April 1st until October 1st. Individuals have been also exempted from personal income tax, social insurance fee for the same period. Except this, the government provides with 100,000 MNT monthly allowance for every child from 0 to 18 years old, starting from April 1st till October 1st. It covers 1,122,400 children. The food coupon that has been provided to needy family members has increased twice since May 1st. This program includes 122,000 adults and 118,000 children. Adults receive 32,000 and children receive 16,000 per month. Social welfare allowance of 188,000 has increased by 100,000. On January 30, the government resolution was made to the Minister of Food, Agriculture, and Light Industry to undertake measures to prevent food deficit, food price speculation, and some tariffs on imported food was temporarily cancelled. It also included measures to undertake to stop import of food stuff from the sites with coronavirus outbreak. The current food supply and price is normal, at least in the capital city, and there is no public complaint about it in other places. Mongolia is a country of animal husbandry. It has 70.9 million of livestock, out of them 22.9 are goats. 200,000 herders, or almost third of 3.2 million population, live from benefits of livestock, producing meat, milk, wool, cashmere, and leather. Cashmere is an important cash product for herders at springtime, constituting 2/3 of their annual income. They produce 40% of the world's cashmere, and 80% of it is sold to Chinese manufacturers. However, this year, due to COVID-19, demand for cashmere declined and the price decreased more than twice, severely affecting herders' cash income. In order to increase herders' income and support local processors of cashmere, the government made resolution to provide 20,000 MNT to herders for every kilogram of cashmere sold. So far, 196,000 herders out of 203,000 herders breeding goats received 170,000 MNT from this program. Since the border points closed and local cross-border trading stopped from some food shortage occurring. As of CHRD's recent trip to the northeast border, some local herders planted vegetables for family consumption as border trade with Russia has closed. Probably same things happening in other areas remote from the city. Due to the strict restrictions in organizing public events, local travels, and as well as lack of funding of all CSOs face difficult time to continue their activities, and there is no information on the actual situation of COVID-19 impacts in rural areas and herders. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Stephen, for your reading the message about the pastoralists in Mongolia in state of Oranzu. Yeah, and I would like to move on to our next speaker. Yes, he from. I would like to call Fatima from SLED, SRED, yes, to present about Dalit women in India. Please. Fatima.
Yes, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, yes.
Hello. Hello.
Yeah. Yes, hello.
Yes, I have to
We hear
switch
you.
my phone. Yeah, yeah. I have to switch to my phone because my network failed in my PC. Uh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes,
Clear.
it is clear.
Okay. See, very quickly, I wanted to explain about the condition in my country, especially the food production has been stopped. The harvest, the marketing was very difficult. Because of marketing, whatever is grown cannot be taken to the market. There is no transportation. Because of the lockdown, women are not able to go to work. There is no income, there is no work, no livelihood, there is no social protection, and there is also very less consumption by women because of lack of food. Like milk, egg, or vegetables and all that. And more, we are afraid that more common, all of us, all women, will be pushed out of work due to migrant workers returning home. So priority will go to them than to the women. So there will be women out of work, more and more women out of work. And there is so much of police atrocities and also the relief and ration given, it's not benefiting, it is not reaching all of us. And the 20 lakhs crores and 1.75 crores promised, it's actually not directly going to the people. It is, the loan will be given more to the corporates, and there is more of privatization where coal mining, uh, airports, defense deals, space travel, and the PPP model, the railway, electricity, and more bank loans to the corporates. This is what going in our country. And what is happening is there is more work for women. Still all are at home. Women have to work more. And also it creates a lot of more violence, domestic violence. And my government opened the wine shop that also increased violence as well as the virus. Especially all are talking about women, forgetting the Dalit women. For Dalit women, the COVID-19 is a very big challenge. Social distancing is almost a kind of supporting the existing untouchability. The lockdown without a plan, without any preparation, snatched the income of the poor Dalit women. It is actually a man-made famine where the next meal is the question for many of our women. Within a month time, there are 40 caste atrocities. These atrocities, violence on women, Dalit women, go unnoticed due to Corona. Everybody, every news, TV, everywhere, they give information about how many deaths today, how many infected, and what happened. But they are not talking about what is happening with Dalit women and the caste atrocities that is more than what the Corona deaths are. And 6 Dalit women are raped every day. So this is not at all reported and nobody is talking about it. And in many places, even the migrant workers who are walking, who are put in camps, when the food is cooked by Dalit women, they are not eating. Even in this situation, the caste discrimination is playing a very, very bad role. And women, Dalit women are facing verbal and physical violence. They are landless, poor, they have limited options. Even some of them do not have an ID card and no bank accounts, no savings, no assets, and no government safety nets, and no secured work. Only when there is work, there is wage for them. Most of our Dalit women are made to work to clean the city, and they are scavenging. In COVID-19, they are cleaning, they are removing the garbage, and Dalit women are doing all kinds of dirty work and involved in helping the doctors and nurses in the hospital and removing the garbages without any safety protection. The PPE is not given to them, and it's a great risk our women are facing it. Hello? Hello?
Yes, we hear you. Kathy, please. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, you can.
Yes,
come
yes.
on.
Yes, we can hear
And
you.
it is, yeah, it's agriculture. Women, Dalit women are agricultural workers, and they are in the informal sector. They toil on roads, construction work, home services, unpaid care work. They clean the city, sewages, but they are paid very low. Due to the privatization, all this liberalization, it is getting into the more and more powerful caste community. The land, the capital, it all gets into the hands of the rich caste community, which is a very, very big hereditary, which is hierarchical, Hindu, religious, that is so much of fundamentalists, which is working today even in the corona period, where more and more seclusion, more and more isolating, more and more exclusion of Dalit women in their own day-to-day work. I believe that the resources are taken away by the rich because of the privatization, and the distribution of wealth is in the hands of very few, and it is always upward, not to the poor families. More migrant workers are Dalits, and they face a lot of problems while traveling by train. There are more than 16 deaths in the by train because there is no food, no water, and they have still suffering. There is no midday meal given to people. The health care is very bad. Very low test has been taken place, and the number of infected they are giving every day is not the true. There is a lot of violence going on. It is the wine shop opening, and also suicides are taking place. 3 children, a mother thrown away into the well, and she also died. And there should be safety measures, and women farmers as landless they asked us to stay at home without work, without money. And when Dalit women went to the ration shop, some of them were denied without ration. That is given very little. That is the 5 kilos of rice and wheat and 1 kilo of pulses, 1 kilo of oil for a family where they cannot manage that for a long time. So it is also lot of accidents killed some of our workers. 40-50% of them are migrant workers, are Dalits, Adivasis. There are 16 Adivasi workers were traveling, walking all the way, unable to buy the ticket. On the way, they slept on the railroad where they didn't expect that the train will come. 16 of them were crushed to death. And the electrician that committed suicide, walking after 4 days. People are walking and walking and walking. So this capital, powerful people with all kinds of rich, they are enjoying the life, but not the poor Dalits. I think our women need more and more income security. Our women need more employment. We want the government to extend the support of free ration for another next 6 months. midday meals to children who have no food at home, and then they have to maintain water supply, and then also to give cash distribution, 1,000 rupees for every month for another 6 months. And I also believe that we should try to see that our local traditional seeds to be preserved, and the traditional cultivations should start. No more cash crop, but food crops. And Dalit landless women should find land to grow food for the community. So the cash, the health services, and the milk distribution even to the families should be given. And the migrant workers are still stranded. The migrant workers should be taken safely to their homes. On May 22nd, 10 central trade unions joined together, protested a big national level protest, local level also. In Tamil Nadu, we had 10,000 places protest against the government, saying that the law, the draconian law changes must be stopped, and they should not privatize public sectors, and no loans, not to corporatize agriculture. This was the demand. So I believe that we have to encourage more and more traditional farming. We have to encourage more and more employment opportunities. And also, we have to continue to say no to WTO and no to RCEP and no trade, which exploits all our resources, which exploits the life process, our blood. It takes away our life. So let us continue to fight and see that women and Dalit women, tribal women have land and then live peacefully in this world. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Fatima, for your sharing the situation in India regarding to Dalit women. Yes, we have one last speakers from Sri Lanka. Yeah, before Katu shares the situation in Sri Lanka, I would like to remind you all, yes, the participant here, as well the audience in Facebook or YouTube. Please keep the questions coming, and we will have an open forum after the sharing from Katu. Yes, so please notify your question and drop your question here or in the comment. Yes, so the next speaker I will call Katu from Vigapani, yes, Sri Lanka, to share about agricultural and migrants worker in Sri Lanka.
Hello everyone, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I will switch off my camera because since my connection is not much good. So I think you all are stay safe, and let me introduce myself. I'm Chatu from Vigapani National Women's Federation in Sri Lanka. I work as the project coordinator there. So if I would like to first explain about the situation in Sri Lanka due to this COVID-19 pandemic. Actually, Sri Lanka is kind of a country who responds to the prevention system in a positive way. And in Sri Lanka, for now, around 1,530 patients have been identified, and around 10 people have been dead, and 745 people have been recovered. And it is happy to say, like, for the past 28 days, no one has been recorded or identified within the community as a COVID patient. So it is kind of a good thing, like now we have quite free space and to move and to engage and to get back into our normal life. However, since our health system is totally free and the doctors and medical staff took a lot of efforts to bring our country into this level. So anyway, if I tell you about that is the Sri Lankan situation, and if I tell you about how this situation hit to our economy and also the agriculture sector, it is quite bad because since our country is a country who do a lot of exports like garments and tea and rubber and such kind of crops to Europe and also Middle East countries. So it totally collapsed our economy. And the other thing is a lot of women, especially the rural women, went to Middle East and also other Europe countries as migrant workers. And with this pandemic, they have to come back, and government is taking measures to bring them back into the country. So the other thing is we are a country who had a good income from the tourism. So it since the situations effect to the tourism industry, all businesses and other other things related with the tourism has also been collapsed. So because of this, a lot of women, especially the women, staying home, and also sometimes they had to stay in home for a particular period of time, and they had no money at that period. So however, now we are restarting our industries and also our situations back. The other thing is this situation hit the Sri Lankan agriculture workers, especially in the people, especially the women in the state workers, because in Sri Lanka, from the employment sector, around 25% of employment is engaged in agriculture, and 29% of women are especially engaged in agriculture sector. So then, however, especially in the state sector, it's Tamil community who do the plantation works in the tea plantations. So they are basically the daily wage and workers. So because of this situation, those people had to stay in homes around 1.5 months. But in that particular period of time, since they don't have their own lands to cultivate, they face a lot of difficulties for accessing the food and accessing the market, since they don't have enough saving money or facilities. The other thing is it hit to the Sri Lankan the agriculture, especially the farmers in upper country and upland farmers. Due to the restrictions of the Sri Lankan internal transportation system, the farmers couldn't transport their harvest to the market. Therefore, a lot of harvest was it was waste. And the other thing is there was a decline of the price, since this the transportation system is not properly continue. There was a decline in the price which received to the farmers. Therefore, a lot of wastage was there. The other thing is it hit to the fishermen also. Even though in the lockdown period, our government allowed fishermen and also to the farmers to engage in their own works, like they can go to the paddy field and they can go to the home garden. There were no restrictions for the farmers. It is something good. But however, since the import and especially the export system is strict, our fishermen couldn't do the export things to Europe and other countries. So likewise, there are a lot of issues were emerged with this COVID situation. And once we see the impact on the women and in a general perspective, and also especially in these situations, actually in Sri Lanka, it is quite, we can see there is a difference for the access to the land and market, and also the inputs for the women. Especially in the rural area, there are 70 million of people 17 million of people are rural people, and 8.9 million of them are women, but most of them are doing the agriculture in their small scale farmland, or they work as a estate workers. So however, they have problem with title of the land, especially some laws, the Tamil laws called Tesavalame laws, they have restrict on women's access and women's entitled to the land. The other thing is they have there's a lack of female target oriented program for in the agriculture system. And also there's another problem faced by the women the women who are doing agriculture is lack of access for the subsidies given by the government, since the land title is belong to the men and also the fathers most of the time. So the other thing is the women, they most of the time link with the lower end of the agriculture value chain. So therefore, they don't engage remarkably in the market discussions or trade discussion or value-added production process. So the other thing is their participation in decision making related to the agriculture discussions, and also farming platforms, and also other policy making bodies is minimum. Therefore, their engagement and their visibility in agriculture is quite low. And the other thing is the involvement in the commercial agriculture and also networks and markets is quite it is not much wider. Therefore, a lot of issues faced by the women, especially the rural women, is not addressed fairly in the national level platforms. So if we talk about, then if we focus on what are the measures that taken by the government to address these issues, especially the asserting the food sovereignty continuously, it is quite positive in our context, because government now making crop plans and influence to the government sector to making crop plans to promote the import substituting crops, such as instead of dal, we import our we promote our local food like moong, cowpea, and other cereal products. And also the most important thing with this situation is most of the Sri Lankan people had to stay home, and they rethink about their own resources, because since the lockdown situation, the import system was collapsed, and they were starting to rethink about their seeds and their lands and their started the national level programs for promoting the home gardening and also domestic farmland. And also there was a fertilizer shortage within the country, and therefore people were converting to use the local organic inputs, such as they make their own pest repellent method, pest repellents, and also compost and biochar and such mechanisms. And the other thing is there was a change in the food pattern in Sri Lanka, and people would start to talk about the food, the local food, and also the indigenous food, especially the traditional rice, which enhanced the immune system of the children and also the people. So other than that, there was an online food delivering system, and no one, like in comparing to India and the other countries, we didn't face into kind of a situation which there is no one like much hunger, because even though we were not ready for this kind of tragedy, we had enough food. And the other thing is government gave around 5,000 rupees per month for each family in this country who are faced by the difficulties, especially the rural farmers and also the people who are in the marginalized areas. So it was distributed by the local authorities and also the Grama Sevaka, who is responsible for local in the grassroots level. So then the other thing is government implemented this program called sharing the seeds. So in that period, the agriculture department distributed seeds online, kind of a seeds pack to promote the agroecology within the country. So you can easily talk to them or send them a message, and the agrarian officers will bring the seed to your homes. So it was implemented during the lockdown period. So, however, if I share what we are doing and what we believe to change this system as the agriculture workers, like and the CSOs, we for these years, and also we were believing something. So this was a good time to express and to bring it practically, because we saw the neoliberal systems and cooperatives, and also the system most of the people were believing were collapsed in front of them. So with the restrictions for the imports and exports, the people had to look about their resources and what is about their land and such things. So then they believe the food system, the self-made food system. So this was quite a good change for the Sri Lankan people. And so from this, we thought we need to do something. So in the community level, we were doing some, I can share with you, we were doing, oh, I can't share the screen. I can't share the screen. Okay, I will tell you. We were doing something like we were opening online platforms for share the knowledge among the people who are interested with agroecology. And this is kind of a link that I'm sharing with you. You can go into that, and you can. It is in. Okay, I can share now.
Cancel, you remain only 2 minutes left.
Can you? Yeah. Can you see?
Hello, chat 2. Hello.
Can you see my slides?
Hello. Yes, yes. You can finish your slides
So we
in
were
1
doing
minute.
online our website. Okay, I will finish. So this is something that we were engaging on, the farmers market. We also doing this, and this is very effective in this kind of a situation. Through the farmers market, we try to influence, we try to link the vendors, and also producing our own pesticides. And the other thing is, we were finding a lot of methods that where we can link the rural women in this kind of situation to added value chain process. So this is some kind of products made by the rural women. So from the extra harvest, they collect them and they process this kind of food. So then thank you very much for giving me opportunity to share what we are doing, and also the situations in here. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Chatu. Yes, for your presentation and sharing us the situation in Sri Lanka. Yes, as we have short time to finish our program, Yes, now we got 3 questions from our friend and comrade. So I would like to read those questions. It's my related to Saro, yeah, and Kachi, and also Fatima from India. So I read this question. Yeah, the first question. Here is that as it is clear that apart from the West, in the rest of the world, like Asia, Africa, Latin America, the biggest COVID problem is not COVID, but the disastrous economic and social impact of the lockdown. Don't you think there is the need of the campaign to stop the lockdown? Plus, the virus is so big and only the speculation for the vaccines are keeping the emerging on. Yes, it's mainly related to Sarah or Katy. Yes, the second question is there seem to be common directions governments are handling the COVID-19 crisis, neglect things, the working people, while for the opening up local agriculture to neoliberal policy and corporate investment in the name of revitalizing the economic and agriculture sector, and at the same time using lockdown and military action to listen, dissent and opposition. So the question is, what should be our collective approach and actions in ensuring food security as well as advancing the rights and welfare of our food producers and amid this capitalist and fascist policy of the government? Yes, the question is referred to Saro. The last question is for Fatima. Yes, is the return to rural area from city by impoverished migrant now reversed in India? Government is calling back people to work. So yeah, we have only these 3 questions. So I think we have 2 minutes for each to answer the question. The first question is for Katy or Saro.
Okay, thank you very much for the question. I think the situation is that the COVID-19 became an excuse and to kind of have this this changes in policies, stopping protests, stopping dissent, and also in the lockdown, people are told to stay at home, and so you can't really do any kind of organizing and mobilizing. So that became an excuse. While I think the lockdown, because it was a pandemic, we needed to have some level of lockdown, but it could have been done in a much more thought through way, because that something is happening in Europe and Asia then responded. It was Philippines, then Malaysia, and then Korea and everybody else, and then India. So they would have known that this was happening. And so what they did not do was planning. So our vulnerable groups, in terms of providing information, providing food to the people who are in lockdown, especially the vulnerable groups, the daily paid wages, the urban poor areas, they did not bother.
and in many areas also the migrant workers, the indigenous people, all were affected. So the whole providing of food, I think is very, food aid or food community kitchens were, should be encouraged, provided the food, and also supplies, basic need supplies. So that was one. Second is that they, in the beginning, in many countries, they prevented the farmers to go and grow their food and do the harvest. So people lost, farmers lost tremendously. Third is humanitarian aid to the daily wage workers, I think, in terms of cash, was also not there. And what aid was given was to our businesses, our corporations, and they were supposed to pass this on to their workers, which never happened. So there was a lot of problems with that. And they used this excuse of the lockdown to provide, to curtail all our movements, to curtail protests, to curtail our organizing. I think those were the key points. Then what do we do in this? I think it's a good call, an alert system, because it's alerting us that we need to have much more national food security, and farmers are very important in that instance. And it's not the big corporations who are doing it for the export. Moving out of neoliberalized policies, I think it's very important. Protecting our food production and supporting our farmers. And I think Kathy will talk about the land to the landless. I think is very, very clear. And for me, agroecology also is very important, because it don't need to depend on outsiders, outside countries or corporations. You depend on yourself. I think those are the few things that I want to emphasize. And we should find ways of organizing ourselves in this lockdown. We have to organize ourselves in terms of continuing our criticism, our critical thinking, our protests. And so we have to know how, we have to build our capacity now to use all these new ways of working. And I think that would be very, very important. Thank you.
Okay. Hello. Hello.
Yes, it is.
Okay. Thank you for that question. Like what I have shown in my presentation, that the government, not only here in the Philippines, but also in Indonesia, where the government is handling the COVID crisis through fascist and different unjust policies, which deprive our farmers to their economic and also political rights. So, but despite this, here in the Philippines, we use a different form of the technology to air our grievances against this anti-people policy of our government. We use this. We have a regular webinar forum. The different sectors here in the Philippines is using the webinar forum to show the real situation of the sectors. Same here on this on the peasant sector. We have regular webinar forum, and also we use this online action, where we flood the Facebook with our demands, with the real situation in the rural areas. And the result is very positive, since with the demands of the farmers asking for relief, asking for donations. We are being flooded with donations from the different sectors, and that's what we are using it for our regular relief operations, and also send, if we cannot go to a place where we launch a relief operations, we send money, and our local organizations will do the relief operations, no? And from there, our campaigns regarding genuine land reform programs, issues of the farmers are being because this we write press releases, no? We write press releases and other forms to ventilate the different issues of the peasants, and including the different sectors of our society. So from there, the situation have exposed the real color of our government, who are really are very rabid in implementing these neoliberal policies, despite we are in the midst of this crisis, no? So I think the struggle for a genuine land reform, struggle for the direct support for farmers is really really a task for us peasants, no? Not just here, for the whole peasantry in the whole Asia Pacific, no? Because we have the same issues, and we have the same the problem is the same, and our the main culprit of these problems faced by the peasantry in the whole Asia is the this implementation of neoliberal policies imposed by the imperialist countries.
Okay, so thank you, Saro and Kathy, for answer the question. I think the question number 1 and number 2 is already answered by Saro and Kathy, and I hope our friend who asked the questions will be satisfied and catch up the answer now. So yeah, so for the question number 3 is for Fatima.
Yes. Repeat the question again. Hello?
The question for you is the return to rural areas from city by impoverished migrants now reversed in India, as a government is calling back people to work?
See, it is a very big question on migration itself. It is due to agrarian crisis. And we all know that agriculture was worsening due to industrial privatization taking place. In India, farmers continued to commit suicide. Within 2 decades, 350,000 farmers committed suicide due to indebtedness, and there is no minimum support price given to them. No income increase for farmers. See, every farmer family got only 20,000 a year as an income. Whereas if you refer that with the government staff, they received within 40 years more than 300%, farmers only 19%. So there was already a report saying that from rural areas, 400 millions will move to urban by 2020. This is what happened now. Because of land acquisition, because of less income to the farmers were deprived, suicides, indebtedness, And so much of protest by our farmers to Delhi. Thousands of them went to Delhi, which was not accepted. The migration has to be reversed in the context of that in rural areas, we have to revitalize agriculture. We will not expect the migrant workers for what they have suffered today. It is more like partition period of Pakistan and India. It is more worse than that. And it is also what happened in the Nazi camps. This is the kind of things going on. I cannot explain how painful it is to see every day in the newspapers what is going on. So we have to revitalize agriculture, make it viable, and agricultural and rural economy has to be given importance. And the policy intervention is, first of all, there are 60 crore in India farming class. The government has to focus on income security. Give them percentages, give them commission to see the income security. They get 20,000 a month at least. This is what the farmers are demanding. 20,000, because any secretary in an office, government office, is earning more than 20,000. But here, they are not earning 20,000 a year, less than that. So at least 18,000 a month is the latest demand farmers are saying. And we have to go back to the traditional farming, as I said, involve the migrant workers. Migrant workers have gone home with a hope that they will find something, one meal a day at least, and the protection of the family. And the only fear is that women will not find the same job as they were doing now, because there will be more and more workers. For that, what we are saying that we should not allow any of this American or EU or WTO stuff getting into Indian agriculture, produce food for them, but we have to produce food for our community. And now we are asking our governments to increase this.
You need to finish
increase.
your answer.
Hello?
Hello? You remain 1 minute to finish your answer.
Yeah. Just last point. We are now, the only solution is to provide the NREGA, that is the National Employment Regulation work that people are given every day. So that should be increased to see that the migrant workers remain in the villages, at least to find some employment opportunities in the villages, not to go back. They cannot go back to the same urban areas to work in the factories. Thank you. Sorry if I've taken more time. Very sorry.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Fatima, for the answer. Yeah. Based on our time, Bali, we cannot allow to ask question anymore. Yes. So now I would like to call Bali. Yes, to express and to share the synthesis of our webinars today. Yes, as you are the secretaries of the PCSS Asia as well as the APC. Yes, please share your synthesis now.
Thank you, Chandra. It's good to among friends, since we can't be physically present with each other. So it's good we are using technologies to getting in touch. Thank you, PCFS, for also giving me the opportunity to share my synthesis out of this webinar. For me, it was, I think, and for most of us, it is going to be, it was a very substantial webinar, and I think everybody has learned a lot from them, from the speakers. as Saru started giving intro, and a very holistic, understanding of what is happening around the globe, and Saru written down that it's a new liberal agenda through within even during the pandemic of COVID, use of military force to curb the voices of the masses. And also, Saru provided some statistics that 1.6 trillion workers, which is half of the global workers, informal workers, are in danger of their livelihood. This is the kind of severity of the issue and gravity of the issue. And Saru provided the gravity, and we forced to think in an out of a box thinking that how could we resolve this gravity and the sensitive issue. 1 billion people going hungry, as also mentioned in Jesse, that that about 100 billion in hunger, and out of that, in Asia, the malnutrition and food insecure, chronically food insecure people are living in Asia. Out of that, during this pandemic duration, the prices of food have increased. It's increased 25% in Myanmar. Jesse mentioned that, and 5% in many in some countries. But I would like to focus that food availability is not an issue. That's very important. As Jesse mentioned, we have ample food to provide to provide the masses of the world and to eliminate the hunger. But the issue of accessibility is there, because the price are at high, and people don't have jobs. People have less income, and due to that kind of a situation, it is hoped that during the year, next few years, we will be the hunger that is very alive, because 60% people are going to be decreased in near future. So that in that, and 1.6 billion people will not have their jobs. So how it will be possible, those who don't have enough resources to have food? That's why we need to think in a way where we can deal of this kind of situation, where we are predicting that the hunger will rise, but how we can deal with this situation. I also noticed that Jesse mentioned 90% subsidy is going to the rich farmer, and at one hand the subsidies are going to the rich farmer. On the another hand, as my Fatma mentioned, that the bailout plans in India have given to corporations, many, not to the poor people, not to the farmer, not to the women, not to the Dalit women, but to the corporations. And look what the trillions of dollars and pounds have been given on the bailout plan in Europe and the US. But the poor people are not having even their enough food. That need to be understand. In crisis, this capitalist system always try to get benefit. They always try to in the crisis get to want to get their opportunities to get more profit. That's what is happening. And one example is the buyer is distributing hybrid seed. It's kind of for solution, again getting more profit. And in Pakistan, I want to share with you, that this year the cotton seed, the farmers are getting cotton seed, very low quality cotton seed, and even the dealers are not guaranteeing that it will germinate. Even some farmers have sowed the cotton seed twice, thrice, but it's not germinated, and they have got their money. So it does not matter if the farmer will lose their income and their harvest, no problem. But these corporation will have their money. What is the solution? For instance, Azra mentioned how the USAID, EU, US, and other international organizations are trying to manipulate, commodify the livestock sector in Pakistan, and of course in across the globe. They are manipulating the rules and policies so that poor livestock farmers are not even live there on subsistent level. So they have to get out of this business because they don't have this phytosanitary measures mechanism that put in place just to commodify this sector, because it's a huge profit sector. And as Chatu mentioned, that is also brings in my mind that in crisis there is always an opportunity. Bring back our traditional agriculture, the agroecological based agriculture, the organic manure, because the no fertilizer available in Sri Lanka, as Chatu was mentioning. Now they are thinking to how to produce their organic manure. So it will strengthen, it will the germination and the soil fertility, everything will be improved by that. And we need to understand that this import-export economy, which is based on neoliberal economy, is not going to solve our issues. But it is the main cause of our problem. Food can't come, food can't go, farmer can't be self-sufficient. We will into our own feeds, then there will be no dependency. And at the end of the day, I'll say that the answers are I found in Kathy's of APC's presentation. That is the fight for land and a struggle against imperialism, genuine agrarian land reform. Unless we will make this genuine agrarian land reform for masses of those who are toiling our field, there is no aspiration of people. There is no sustainability in the world. There is no peace. For just and lasting peace, people need to have their land rights and rights, access and control over all kind of input, including water, seed, and land. And I need, at the end of at the end, I will say that don't forget to use these technologies, as mentioned in one of our speaker, to expose the exploiter, to expose those who are getting profit out of this crisis, to expose those who are responsible for miseries and for the hunger in the world, and strengthen our unity and get together and use the technology to do propaganda against the capitalist system and against the feudal lords in our part of the world. Unless or until we will be joining in a class-based struggle and look into a struggle against imperialism and new liberal economy, we will not going to achieve That's it from my side. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Walis, for giving us the synthesis of our webinars. Yes. Yes. Many of us still have some more questions, but all many questions. You can send us more, then we can forward your question to our speaker directly. Don't worry. But our programs now is almost finished. But we still have. I would like to give the floor to Razan. Yes, to give us the closing remarks of our webinars. So, Razan, are you here?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Hello,
yes,
everybody.
Razan is yeah. Okay, you can
Hello.
start now.
Thank you so much. Thank you for giving me the honor to give closing remarks. Thank you so much for the speakers, for the very interesting, lots of learning, very informative. It reflects really a great diversity, great experience, which in itself reflects the value of the Asia, the big Asia. It's the largest continent, and it's, in our opinion, the highest, has the highest potential to achieve food security and food sovereignty due to its richness, to its rich diversity. I can see more leaders in this region than any other experienced leaders, and great experience than any other part of the world. And I'm proud to be part of this session, representing also on behalf of our co-chair Sylvia of PCFS, and representing also my region, West Asia, and the place where I come from, Palestine. We are very honored to be part of this group. And as I said, Asia, as I always say, Asia is the cradle of all civilizations and has the greatest potential. And that is why maybe our continent is always targeted with these imperialist plans to keep it always lacking food sovereignty and food security. Having said all this, I think the value of this webinar and the value of the immense amount of information and learning and experience that we got, there is one step further needed. And as a question was raised to Saro, and her answer is the issue of how could we turn all these collective messages. We really share the vision, we share the messages, we share the pain, we share the hopes. How do we alter these messages or reach with them to collective actions, to collective learning, to collective solidarity plans? I think PCFS, what is PCFS is trying to do now with its members, with its secretariat and co-chairs, we're trying to grasp the opportunity at this time of the pandemic that is being given to the world to make changes. We should have our own plans to reacquire power, to be sovereign over our food and our resources, versus the plans of the imperialists and the new agenda that Saro was talking about. We know their plan. It has always been very clear. We know it from what Kissinger, the foreign minister of America, has said. The criminal Kissinger, he said, if you want to control people, you have to control their food. So we have to grasp the opportunity to nullify this statement. And I think we have to work together in parallel. While we are working on our local issues, we should always have a parallel line to work together as a region. And as global, but we cannot be really influential on global level if we are not very strong on a regional level. So we have to start thinking that we are, as in our culture say, that we are all peoples like one body. If one part of this body aches, the whole body aches. So if we have a problem anywhere in Pakistan or the Dalits or the Philippines or anywhere in this region, the whole body should ache, and we should have actions and campaigns and plans to stand with each other. Because if one part gets stronger or gets healed, the whole region will really be stronger and happier. So as everybody mentioned, we should build our capacity. We should extend the learning that we are doing from each other, but at the same time we have to have always solidarity and support campaigns for each other, and we should feel, every part of us should feel that we are not alone. So this is what I had to say in summary, that I'm honored to be as West Asia part of Asia, and I look forward for the next step of having common plans and common campaigns to stay together. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Razan, for giving the recap. Yes, the entire recap and meaningful closing remark for our first webinar that prepared and organized by PCFS. And I also would like to thank for PCFS that gives me this opportunity to facilitate the important webinars. And I also thank you to our friend and comrades who has participated in our webinars here, and also thanks to our audience who are watching our program from their home, from their airwares, and also thanks to our speaker, yes, that well prepared for their presentation, slide presentation, and meaningful also the presentation. So I am here, would like to thank all of you, yeah, for spending time, yes, to participate us, yes, and our programs now is finished. So yes, for any email or related to others communication tool, you can communicate with PCSS secretaries, yes, for remaining or asking another question to our speaker or for communication. Yeah, thank you for all of you for participators.
Thank you, Chandra. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.